Hey there, Tad Hargrave from Marketing for Hippies here. And uh, as I was falling asleep last night, I had a thought that I wanted to share, which is, well, maybe just a little story. So one of the reasons I started Marketing for Hippies, the seed of it got planted when I was still in high school. I was volunteering for a leadership development franchise, and I eventually got a job there doing sales. And I learned a lot of the traditional sound like this. A lot of what I learned in marketing, actually, I still use and teach today. And a lot of what I learned in sales is a lot of what I kind of teach against. It was a lot of the Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, a lot of the traditional sales stuff that was all oriented around getting the sale. And for a couple of years, I tried really hard. I was very type A. I would show up, 9 in the morning, leave at 9 at night kind of thing. I had two stopwatches. I would time myself. One was for how much I was on the phone, because I was doing telephone sales, and then another one for how much I was talking, which was actually pretty instructive, because you think you're working a lot in the day, and you find out you're only actually talking to people for an hour, even though you're there for 12. So, and during those years, I practiced a lot of these techniques. I listened to all these audio tapes. I read all these books about sales and overcoming objections. And I'd have like lists of ways to overcome certain objections, and all this stuff that I speak to in my workshops. The reason I can speak to it, I think, with some kind of clarity or authority is because I did it and I studied it so deeply. So I run into this a lot in my workshops, where people have maybe learned the same kind of thing that I learned. And here's the truth. If you don't know of an ethical, non-pushy, non-aggressive way to make sales, and you need to make sales, you'll probably do it the unethical way, because you've got to feed your kids. You got to pay the rent. And if you think that those less ethical ways work, if you think that they're actually effective, maybe also out of some naivete, not really seeing the consequence that they bring to yourself, to the person you're talking to, and also to the marketplace, then you'll probably do it. So it's not, I think when people do it, it's not bad people. It's just, often we've never seen somebody do it in a way that made sense or resonated more. Nobody told us another way to do it. Nobody showed us a way to do sales that actually felt good. And I remember years ago in Vancouver, there was a woman who came to my workshop, and she was deeply involved in some multi-level marketing thing where she'd learned a lot of these very pushy, aggressive sales tactics. And the whole day she was fighting with me, it seemed. But it was a different kind of fighting. It wasn't a fighting where I felt like she was upset with me. It was like she would come at me with a sword, to attack me. Not to hurt me, actually. But what I could feel unspoken was a desire for her to be disarmed. That she needed to know that what I was teaching was going to be as effective, if not more effective, than what she was already doing. So what she was already doing worked to some extent, if that makes sense. It generated sales for her. So I could feel her saying to me in between the lines, if this is just some hippie bullshit about don't pressure people, my kids are going to not be able to eat, I'm not interested. So all day she'd come at me with these moves, and I would just, ching, 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 and I would disarm her. And her sort of, what she'd been taught she needed to do would go flying. And she would look at me, and the look on her face was kind of like a, astonishment and delight. But then, what about this? And she'd come at me with some other move. How about this? And how about this? And all day, it was different moves coming. And each time I was able to disarm her. Each time there was that look of delight. And by the end of the day, she was crying. And I could tell it was from relief that she didn't have to do that anymore. Any of those approaches that felt so off to her at some deep level. So I think a lot of us are torn, or, I used to be, between it either feels good or it works. And that's the choice. You either do something that feels right in your heart and you can sleep well, and it doesn't get any sales, but you get to at least feel vaguely morally superior to other people, or you pay the bills and you do something that's effective but you can't sleep. And in my experience, the things that feel better can also work better. It's not a choice. I don't know if it's exactly a higher synthesis, but there is an approach to selling and marketing that feels good and is actually much more effective than what I was doing when I was 18. You know, and so the reason I was able to disarm this woman is because I've done it. I was that guy for years. I'm sorry. So, yeah, so if you found yourself in that place where you're doing things in terms of selling that don't feel right, it's not your fault. It's not to be not to take it on as some deep shame. It's just maybe nobody showed you another way to do it that could work, that could feel good and be effective. And so that's the basis of my work in marketing for hippies. Anyways, all that came last night, and I wanted to make a video to share it. I hope that's of some use to some of you. And I'm going to put a link to a video I've got of my day-long workshop where I cover a lot of the core stuff that came out of those years, deeper thoughts into it.